Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. Today we will be covering a very important topic for our GS paper mains 3, that is SEZ, Special Economic Zones, transformation of special economic zones. We know that exports are very important for a country for its economic boost and for its balance of payments and for its better economy. On the similar lines, we will be dealing with our today's topic, which is related to making our exports better only, and the topic is called Special Economic Zones, or SEZ. You all must have heard of this. So today's lecture will be divided into 4 parts. First, we will be understanding the context of the news, that why it is in news and why we are studying this topic. Then we will be coming to the definitional part of it. We'll understand what SEZ is. Then we will be doing the budget part of it. It has also been mentioned in the budget also. So we'll be describing and we will be reading what exactly been mentioned in the budget this year, 2022. And then at last, we will be dealing with the way forwards or the solutions, the way forward or the conclusion of it. Okay, so let's come to the first part of it, which is context. We know that it is, it is very difficult to, to change our entire economy or to boost our entire economy dramatically overnight, right? So in order to overcome that thing that we cannot do changes in the entire economy, we came up with a solution. We came up with this thing called SEZ, Special Economic Zones, ताकि थोड़े time में we can boost our economy and we can make our exports better. Okay? This is a brief introduction about SEZ, but why it was in news? It was in news because, for exports to get better, we need better legislation, we need better laws. And in today's lecture, we will be talking about certain rules and certain legislations only. In a move to enhance export, like I told you, it is majorly related about exports, though it is also related about many other things, but majorly we will be focusing upon the exports of our country. The government is planning to rewrite a new law. Like I've told you, we are planning a new legislation to replace the existing Special Economic Zone Act जो हमारे पास अभी presently act था. We are planning to rewrite it and make it better, broaden its provision so that our exports can be boosted. So this transformative announcement will enable states to become partner in the development of the enterprise and service hub. And the finance minister observed the move would enable all large industrial enclaves optimally utilize the available infrastructure, thereby pushing up the competitiveness of exports. So we are also in a way of making our exports more competitive globally, right? These are some of the exports we did using this special economic zones, जो कि हम देख रहे हैं कि increase हुआ है, but 2021 में हम यहाँ पर slight decline भी देख रहे हैं. This is all of due to COVID. So I hope the context is clear to you that we will be dealing with dealing with a very important legislation, a very important law in today's lecture. Coming to the second part of it, that is the definition. Like I've told you, I'll be dividing today's lecture into 4 parts. This is the second part of it. We're already done with the context of it. Now we'll read about the definition and we'll understand the meaning of SEZ. तो मैंने आपको बताया कि we cannot dramatically change the economy overnight, but we can definitely focus upon certain areas, or we can definitely create certain areas so that our economy could be boosted over a short period of time. And such areas we have developed in our country, which are called SEZ. So these are the special areas, these are the special territory inside our country only, where certain rules and regulations are liberalized in terms of economics. तो economic कुछ जो rules है वहाँ पर इनको कुछ छूट मिली हुई होती है, कुछ liberal rules होते हैं in areas में. What are those liberties in terms of rules? We will be discussing them in detail, do not worry. But I hope special economic zone आपको clear है. Special economic zone is an area in which business or trade laws are different from the rest of the countries. थोड़े liberal rules और laws होते हैं in the SEZ if we compare it with the entire country or the other parts of the country, right? Also, SEZ एक territory होती है within the country only. So you need to remember this is a territory within the country only. This is not the outside territory. So this is the remarkable difference you must remember. That has typically duty free, मतलब कुछ concessions मिलते हैं इनको, जहाँ पर भी SEZ establish होता है वहाँ पर इनको कुछ economics में कुछ taxation concessions इनको मिलते हैं, which gives the encouragement in the investment in the infrastructure to create more and more employment and directly boost our export, which is the major goal of SEZ, right? So their aim include increased trade balance, employment, increased investment, job creations, and effective administration. These are some of the goals pertaining to SEZ, right? Additionally, companies जो हैं उनको टैक्स हॉलीडेज भी हमारी गवर्नमेंट प्रोवाइड कर सकती है, सो दैट दे कैन बूस्ट द इन्वेस्टमेंट, सो दैट दे कैन बूस्ट help our economy to boost, where upon establishing themselves in a zone they are granted a period of lower taxation. कुछ lower taxation उनको मिल सकता है, like for example they're given some 100% tax free thing. अगर आपकी जो भी एक्सपोर्ट इनकम है उस पर आपको टैक्स नहीं देना. दिस इज वन ऑफ द liberties they've been provided. And if we talk about the next point, so the next point says Asia का जो first EPZ था, do not get confused here. EPZ is not SEZ, though we derived SEZ from EPZ only, from export processing zones only. We will be covering this topic in detail in our next slides. But as of now, focus upon SEZ only. ठीक है? तो EPZ जो है वो हमारा एशिया का जो पहला ईपीजेड था, एक्सपोर्ट प्रोसेसिंग जोन जो था, वो हमने कांडला पोर्ट पे इस्टेब्लिश किया था 1965 में, विच इज सिचुएटेड इन गुजरात पोर्ट भी जिसको हम बोलते हैं. ठीक है, दिस इज बिट ऑफ अ हिस्ट्री अबाउट इट. वी विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट इट, डू नॉट वरी. जब हम थोड़ा इसका हिस्टोरिकल बैकग्राउंड देखेंगे तो हम ईपीजेड के बारे में बात करेंगे, वेयर इन यू आई विल बी टेलिंग यू हाउ SEZ केम फ्रॉम EPZ. ठीक है, बट एज ऑफ नाउ जस्ट अंडरस्टैंड कि एशिया का पहला जो एक्सपोर्ट प्रोसेसिंग यूनिट था वो 1965 में शुरू हुआ था टू boost the economy, where in Gujarat, right? So this was about SEZ. I hope इतना आपको समझ आ गया होगा. Now historical background. Again, historical background or the origin of anything is important for us to make our topic very clear and very clean. Historical background में we all know कि 1990 में इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म्स हुए. 1990 इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म्स हैपेंड, बट दोज रिफॉर्म्स कुड नॉट गिव अस द डिजायर्ड रिजल्ट्स. जो हमने एक्सपेक्ट किया था कि हमारी इकोनॉमी जिस लेवल पे बूस्ट होगी, दे कुड नॉट गिव अस द डिजायर्ड रिजल्ट्स, राइट? So to overcome those challenges only, to overcome the challenge of these economic reforms only, we came up with this idea, we came up with this thing called SEZ. ठीक है, जहाँ पर we established or this we came up with the policy of SEZ in 2000. April 2000 में हमने एक policy बनाई regarding special economic zones, that we will be establishing such zones जिससे हमारी इकोनॉमी बूस्ट हो सके, हमारे एक्सपोर्ट्स बेटर हो सके. एंड इवेंचुअली वी केम अप विद दिस एक्ट इन 2005 एंड it got effective from 2006. So I'll just take you to the previous slide. And now we will be talking about EPZ. So initially we had this EPZ, export processing zone, जो कि हमने 1965 में establish किया था, right? Because economic reforms incorporated in 1990 did not result in the overall growth of the Indian economy. This I have told you कि desired results हमें नहीं मिले थे, right? So 1965 the whole story started with. Then economic reforms happened. ठीक है, इकोनॉमिक रिफॉर्म्स में जो भी हमारे डिजायर्ड रिजल्ट्स थे वो नहीं आए. देन वी केम अप विद दिस आइडिया and this policy got introduced in 2000. It got implemented, or it started with 2005, or it got affected in 2006. ठीक है, this was briefly about how special economic zones came into place. So this is the chronology. 1965 से शुरू किया, 1990 के economic reforms आए, and then 2005 में finally हमने SEZ establish कर लिया ताकि हम exports को boost कर सकें, right? Okay, then it is not just boosting the export, it also helps us in getting FDIs, FIIs, ठीक है, foreign institutional investors जो होते हैं, FDIs जो होते हैं, तो FDIs को attract करने के लिए भी the history of SEZ in India suggests that red tape, lengthy administrative procedure, rigid labor laws, and poor physical infrastructure facilities were the main cause of deterioration of FDI flows in India. तो FDI flow नहीं हो पाते थे, but after the introduction of SEZ, we tried to overcome this significant challenge of FDI problem, right? So we finally introduced this SEZ, and we overcame this problem of lack of investor-friendly environment and FDI and FIIs. So this was the graph. It again shows the history of SEZ only. It says the same, which I've just mentioned, कि पहले EPZ था, ठीक है, and it was the Asia में जो पहला जो भी setup हुआ था 1965 में, it was in Kandla port, which is in Gujarat. Apart from that, initially हमने Kandla में establish किया था, but after that 7 more EPZs were set up in Bombay, Noida, Surat, Madras, Visakhapatnam, Cochin, etc. में भी हमने इनको establish किया, ठीक है. So the story started with EPZ only, and then reforms happened, and then finally we came up with SEZ. So to invite larger foreign investments in India, these EPZ were converted into SEZ. So like I've told you, these EPZs only got converted into SEZs, or special economic zones, to boost our exports and our economy, right? Up next, we have the objective. Again, a very important point to understand SEZ more properly. So objectives of SEZ, that is special economic zones, like we have discussed, they are pretty much the same, that we wanted to enhance or invite the foreign investment for better exports, hassle-free exports. This was one objective. This was the first objective. Exports promote करने के लिए, ठीक है, foreign investors को attract करने के लिए, इन सब चीज़ों के लिए हमने SEZ को promote करना शुरू किया. These are the major objectives of SEZ. Again, the graphs shows the same thing: foreign investment to attract the FDI and the FIIs. We started this initiative to increase the employment, right, to alleviate the widespread problem of unemployment. We introduced SEZ. Third would be the economic reforms. And so these were the major objectives of SEZ. Moving ahead, what are the facilities available to SEZ? Now, if we, talk about the facilities, so there are various facilities. In fact, the special treatment given to SEZ, if you call it that way. So there are many special treatments of the facilities given to SEZs. Like for example, duty-free import इनको मिलता है ताकि infrastructural या फिर जो भी maintenance होता है SEZ का वो properly हो सके. So there is a duty-free import. जो भी उनको चीजें procure करनी है from outside the country, they can import them duty-free so that the maintenance could be done at a proper time. Next would be the exemption from various taxes like income tax. So they have various tax incentives as well. Like for example, they 100% income tax की उनको छूट मिलती है on their export income. Apart from that, minimum alternate tax pe bhi, they have certain exemptions. Minimum alternate tax, we all know that if there is a company which has a substantial income, so this minimum alternate tax says that that particular company which has a substantial income needs to pay certain minimum tax to the government, right? So this is basically for those companies who are, who are trying to avoid the taxation system. So minimum alternate tax, we also call it MAT. तो मैट को इसीलिए इंट्रोड्यूस किया गया था ताकि जो भी कंपनीज हैं दे कैन नॉट अवॉइड द टैक्स, सो दे हैव टू पे दिस मच, द मिनिमम अमाउंट ऑफ टैक्स डिसाइडेड बाय द गवर्नमेंट. Next would be external commercial borrowing. So these all are the facilities given to SEZs. External commercial borrowing by SEZ, unit up to US dollar 500 million in a year without any maturity restriction. वो इतना पैसा बोरो कर सकते हैं in a year without any maturity restriction. There won't be any restriction. There won't be any maturity restrictions upon them, upon SEZ, through recognized banking channels. What are external commercial borrowing? So a bank, or you can say a loan availed from a foreign or a non-resident entity. Okay? When we avail loan from a foreign or a non-resident entity, we call it external commercial borrowing, and this is one of the facilities provided to SEZs that they can borrow this much of money, $500 million in a year without any maturity restrictions upon them. Next is single window clearance. Single window clearance for the central and state level approvals. So they are given a single window clearances as well at both the levels, at the central and the state level. Now, what are single window clearances? Single window clearances are like one stop shop. Okay, they're like one stop shop wherein you can register yourself, wherein you can track the progress of your business, and wherein you can also ensure the accountability, responsive, accountability and transfer, accountability, responsiveness of the system. So this is like a one-stop solution जहाँ पर आपके सारे काम हो जाते हैं. This is also one of the facilities provided to SEZ through which they can track the entire progress in a fair manner. Okay? Okay. So these were some of the facilities given to SEZ. And the picture again shows the points of SEZ. We've already talked about these points. Single window clearances मिलेगा, ठीक है, इनके approvals better तरीके से और timely manner में हो जाएंगे. Right? Unit must become net forex earners within 5 years. Minimum land area जो है उनका 50 hectares for sector specific and 5 hectare for multi product होना चाहिए. SEZs का कोई license नहीं लगेगा इनका imports के लिए, कोई tax नहीं लगेगा, duty for raw material, कोई tax and कोई duty नहीं लगेगा for raw material. So these are again the facilities given to the SEZs. Right? Freedom for subcontraction, subcontracting and external commercial बोरोइंग में भी वी हैव डिस्कस कि इनको फ्रीडम मिला है, ECBs में भी, एंड इनकम टैक्स में भी इनको काफ़ी सारे एग्जाम्पशंस मिले हैं, स्पेशली फॉर द फर्स्ट 5 years. 100% एग्जाम्पशन इनको मिलता है स्पेशली फॉर द फर्स्ट 5 years. जो भी आपका एक्सपोर्ट इनकम आप अर्न करते हो, यू गेट 100% एग्जाम्पशन फ्रॉम द अंडर इनकम टैक्स एक्ट, स्पेशली फॉर द फर्स्ट 5 years. So these were some of the facilities available to special economic zones. Okay, now moving to the next part of it, which is concerns. So we will now be dealing with the concerns related with special economic zones. The first concern is, we know that our government has done this with an intention to promote the export or to boost our economy. But what contractors are doing, they are using it in a different manner. They are using it to avoid the taxes, because a government has given certain facilities to the SEZs. That is, they can avoid certain taxes, but people are using it otherwise. That is, most of the Indian generations जो आते हैं वो एक्सपोर्ट को प्रमोट करने के लिए नहीं आते हैं. जितने भी contractors which take part in SEZs, they do not come for the to boost our economy or to boost the export. Rather, they come to avoid the taxes. I'm talking about many of the companies, not the majority, but many of them, they come to avoid the taxes, right? Large fiscal sops in the form of bunch of reliefs from the central and the state taxes. तो जो भी reliefs gain देते हैं state और center taxes, उनको avoid करने के लिए, या उनको उन reliefs को gain करने के लिए, these companies register themselves into this thing, right? Then we have also weak connections. Coastal SEZs पे हमारे काफ़ी weak connections होते हैं with their hinterlands, inhibited these zones from utilizing their full potential. Also बहुत सारे central SEZ acts के जो provisions हैं, they do not match with the central level legislation, which again is a confusion, which again creates a confusion between a central and a state level, which is again a cause of a concern. The next would be there is a lack of robust policy design, and of course implementation is the issue. I have told you that implementation, unless we do the implementation part, it is the half job done. So until and unless we do this implementation part properly, we will always lack in whatever policy or whatever legislation we design, right? Next would be the loss of revenue to the government, because government is providing a lot of tax holidays, a lot of tax exemptions in SEZs. So government has to bear all of that money up to its own, right? So the government is providing tax holidays for industries. It loses most of the revenue from it, क्योंकि industries से काफी revenue आता है government को, but government provide certain reliefs to the companies, hence losing that revenue. Okay. Next would be land grabbing. Land are grabbed from poor and middle classes people on the pretext of development. So what these companies and what these contractors do is they grab their land of the poor people. They do not utilize it in a proper way. They do not compensate those poor people. So they are not just doing wrong with those poor people by grabbing their lands, but they are also causing high problems to our environment as well by not utilizing things properly. So this is not just a land grabbing issue, this is not just a livelihood issue of those poor people, but also is a environmental concern which should be dealt with a high precision. Next would be regional disparity. तो जहाँ पर SEZs होते हैं, people of that area gets good facilities, and the others are unable to get that kind of good facilities, creating a regional disparity between two communities or people, right? So these were some of the concern we talked about, that people come here to avoid tax, but not for boosting the economy, which was initially the goal of SEZ, right? Then we've also talked about weak connection. Many states did not match the central SEZ Act. There are different acts and there are different legislations at the state and the central level, which creates confusion between the two. Then there's a effective implementation problem. Also, government का revenue loss हो रहा है और दूसरी side पे कुछ अच्छा भी नहीं हो रहा है. And then land grabbing and environmental issues we've talked about, and regional disparity we've talked about. Right? Up next, we have compensatory problems. So in land grabbing, I told you, they grab the land of the poor people, they start doing their work, but they do not somehow, very, very unfortunately, they do not compensate them properly, which is again a great or severe cause of concern for those people, for their livelihood. If they do not get a proper compensation, it will be a huge problem for such people. So compensatory problem is a major concern. Government provide compensation, but it is not equal to the loss rendered. जितना उन्होंने loss उठाया है, the compensation is not at par with it, right? People have to sacrifice their lands for private person, which they have earned for years of hard work, right? And in return, what they get is not at the par with the loss they rendered, right? Next would be dislocation of the industry. So SEZ attract many industrialists from other industrialized places or the regions, because टैक्स एग्जाम्पशंस काफ़ी होते हैं, तो बहुत सारी इंडस्ट्रीज वहाँ से नॉर्मल जगह से उठ के SEZs में आना पसंद करती हैं, बिकॉज दे गेट मेनी ऑफ द टैक्स एग्जाम्पशंस, thereby depriving these regions of capital and hence causing a regional imbalance और industrial growth में भी काफ़ी decline देखने को मिलता है इसकी वजह से. So these are again two, what do we say, the cause of concerns regarding SEZ. Moving ahead, so this is recent move for SEZ to be transformed into employment and economic enclaves, that is 3 E's. So recently what has happened, we are trying to transform these SEZs into employment and economic hubs or economic enclaves, again to boost our exports. So exports from SEZ increased by 25%. ठीक है, ये हमने देखा 2021 में, which is a brilliant thing. And there's a committee which you must remember regarding SEZ, a very very important committee. You must quote this in your mains examination if a question comes upon SEZ, and a question can come. So you must keep this in your mind, that Baba Kalyani report was there, which focused upon, which says that we need to focus upon promoting the employment when we talk about SEZ. ठीक है? Apart from this, he also talked about to transform SEZ into employment and economic enclave, so that employment could be generated out of them as well as the economy could be boosted. Okay. Other than that, the third point which he mentioned was to modify the operational guidelines and other rules accordingly. Okay. And this graph shows the separation of the investment between the distribution of the investment between the central government, SEZs, and the state government. This is the central government investment, and at that side, state government investments is present. Also, it is showing that the number of units has been increasing, right? 2019 में 16 September 2019 में इतना था, and today if so yeah, here they're talking about the former approvals. ठीक है, here they are talking about the notified SEZs जो 370 हुए, उसके बाद operational हमारे पास 234 हुए, and now if you talk about industrial units approved in SEZs, वो है 5141 as of this is the date of 2019. Okay, and exports का भी यहाँ पर data is given. So this is basically a separation of the central and the state government investment, and also कि number of units हमारा किस तरीके से increase हुआ है. Right? Moving on to the next one. It says need for a new law to promote infrastructure, SEZ. Now this is the most important part of our today's lecture. It relates to the budget 2022. This topic has been mentioned, has been discussed in the budget 2022. तो इसीलिए ये काफ़ी important हो जाता है. We talked about it initially as well when I was telling you that I'll be dividing my topics into 4 parts. This is the third part of it, where I'll be talking about the new law or the legislation regarding SEZ. So the first point, or the first thing it says, the thinking behind the new law is also enable optimal utilization of all vacant lands and building SEZ. It says that we will be utilizing jitni bhi all the vacant lands, and we will be making buildings there so that SEZ could be promoted further. Apart from this, it also says that the government is looking to convert SEZ into a plug and play industrial park ecosystem. Now, here is something you need to understand, that what is plug and play plug and play model. Okay, you all must have computers at your home. So the moment you plug in your pen drive, suppose it gets played, right? On similar lines, plug and play model works. So what exactly it is? It is basically the government will be providing the ready facilities. Ready facilities is the term you need to remember, to the companies or to the contractors. Like for example, they'll be providing them ready facilities of roads, of the road connectivity or the buildings, so that they can just come and start working there. So the government will be providing the ready facilities, which will act as a plug, right? And the contractors or the companies will come and play it or start working there directly. So this is about plug and play model. So this basically, this model actually gained ground in, I guess, 2015, when our then Prime Minister Arun Jaitley ji, Shri Arun Jaitley, he talked about it in 2015 wala budget. And after that, after 2015, we are talking about it in 2022 only, right? So this was about play and plug and play model. Okay, so the next point would be, Commerce Ministry is also working to see whether SEZ firms can be allowed to sell goods in domestic market by paying just an equalization tax. So hamari ministry, Commerce Ministry is also pondering upon if SEZ firms can be allowed to sell goods in domestic markets sirf equalization levy pay karke. Now what is equalization levy? Equalization levy is also called digital or digital tax service or digital tax service. It came in 2016. Okay? It came in 2016 basically for, it is basically on, it is a tax which foreign investors or the foreign companies need to pay for their online advertisements and all. So this is equalization levy. So basically this aim to tax the foreign companies or the foreign investors which has a substantial client base in India, like for example Google, Facebook, etc. Right? So our ministry is also looking for this thing, that there'll be the companies or the firm should be allowed to sell the goods domestic market में सिर्फ equalization levy pay करके. So under this point only, they have also marked that this levy, this equalization levy would be smaller than the regular custom duty जो SEZ units are currently mandated to pay, so that it can help boosting the sales or the exports. So overall, all of these points overall, they are just trying to boost the COVID hit SEZ economy. All of these measures are being taken to boost the COVID hit SEZ economy, be it the plug and play this thing plug and play model. Also plug and play model has came up because we know that a lot of companies are opting out of China and they're looking for the alternative destinations, and we want to make India as an attractive destination, and that is why we're coming up with such attractive policies for the investors to invest in our country, right? Apart from this, we've read about equalization levy, and finally, we know why all of this is happening, just to boost our exports and to revive our COVID hit economy. Okay? If we talk about this graph basically shows the job created. These are the job created. Okay? About SEZs only in India, and these are the investments. So the job created, this graph, as you can see, is increasing. 13-14 का ये ग्राफ है, and at the same time investment is also increasing in SEZ. ठीक है? 13-14 का ही ये ग्राफ है. 11-12 we have compared from 11-12 and 13-14 years. ठीक है? Apart from this, the share of exports has also increased initially from 11-12 to 12-13, but it has slightly decreased in 13-14, right? Here it shows that there are 565 former approvals in SEZs and 388 notified approvals थे, और operational जो हमारे यहाँ पर हैं SEZs, that is 185 in number. These are some of the facts you can remember for your examination, right? So this was again the very important legislation which our budget also talked about, and hence it becomes very important for our prelims as well as mains examination, क्योंकि budget and economic survey is always important for our exam. I hope this much is clear to you. Moving on. Okay, so this is a map. It is telling, it is showing the locations of SEZs in our country, and you will find a common thing between all the location, that all these locations are near coastal areas. Why coastal areas? Because it helps a better connection. Better connection with what? Better connection with the international regions. ठीक है? तो इंटरनेशनल जो भी एक्सपोर्ट है हमारा बेटर हो जाता है, क्योंकि यहाँ पर अगर ऐसी चीज है तो we can transport our products easily. So it provides us a better connectivity and communication with the international neighbors, right? So these are you can definitely glance through it so that you remember कि गुजरात में there is SEZ which is situated, 20 SEZs are situated in Gujarat. ठीक है? उसके बाद शायद Maharashtra mein there are so many, 45 in numbers. ठीक है? Andhra Pradesh mein bhi there are so many, 47 in numbers. Then in Tamil Nadu there are 40. Then in Karnataka 42 is there. So just remember some of the states जहाँ पर बहुत ज़्यादा SEZs present है. Nothing more than that you need to remember. Just have an idea about the states which have SEZs, right? Moving on, way forward. वे फॉरवर्ड बाबा कल्याणी कमेटी के बारे में हमने पहले भी पढ़ा, दैट इट टॉक्ड अबाउट, दैट इट टॉक्स अबाउट मेकिंग एक्सपोर्ट, uh, making or boosting our export, and making our things compatible with the WTO levels. So it also, along with that, it also talks about कि जो भी SEZs हैं, they should be linked with MSME schemes, and they should be allowed the alternative sectors to invest in sector specific SEZs. So there should be a link between MSME scheme and what? SEZ, so that better investment, better economic growth can take place. Apart from that, Niti Aayog is also favoring this. Niti Aayog भी SEZs को या फिर coastal economic zones को काफ़ी favor कर रहा है. ठीक है? Okay. If you talk about the graph, this is talking about the investments, which is again, if we see it, it is increasing. यहाँ से भी it has increased. So we are investing more and more in SEZs, which is a brilliant step towards exporting our products. Up next, and the last graph of our today's lecture, is a graph which is showing a sector-wise segmentation, SEZs ka, right? If we talk about the sectors, this is the tech sector, which holds the major part of it. Then e-commerce is there, and there's a new sector, this pink one, which is a pharma sector, okay, which is also coming up in SEZs. So the major part is holded by the the tech part, okay, the technological part. So SEZ में technological part holds the major proportion of it. After that, it actually kept changing. यहाँ पर it got reduced to some level. Then here it got reduced even more, and then it increased again, right? So the proportions keep changing. But again, you need to remember that these are the certain areas where SEZs are present. So yeah, that was the last slide. And I hope today's lecture was beneficial to you. Again, to summarize everything in one line, we talked about the budget part of the most important budget part of it, the budget part of special economic zones, the new legislations which were tabled recently, and everything is done to export our economy, to attract investment in our country, and to boost our economic growth. That was all about today's lecture. I hope it was helpful. Thank you.